Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Davis with Chris Branch, and we are the In a Nutshell daily podcast where we talk about generative AI to the everyday person and marketers. But also, it's only 10 minutes. So we respect your time. We're only going to be 10 minutes every single day talking about Gen AI and some of the updates, some of the exciting news, some of the bad stuff as well. So, Chris, how you been? How's it been,
Yeah,
buddy?
really good, mate. Really good. Catching up from the event. So excited to catch up and see what your event was like too.
Yeah, so both of us recently were speaking on panels about Gen AI. We've not really spoke to each other about what happened, so we thought, well, let's leave it for the podcast. So we're both going to share our experiences, some of the main points, and obviously some of the things that you listeners or viewers can learn. So, Chris, sum it up in a nutshell. What was your panel about? How was
Yeah,
it?
it was a really great event down in London at Emirates Stadium. So good to be
Oh,
back
home of the
down in
champions,
London.
or
Yeah,
soon to be champions.
exactly. What a great venue it was. And thanks so much to Nicholas for organizing it. And I was invited onto a panel with three of my favorite brands on earth, which was very flattering. I had Google, McDonald's, and Adidas there.
Nice.
And I was the perspective, I guess, of the small agency owner and a different perspective on generative AI, so that when we had the round table panel, it was somebody else's perspective of using this in their everyday workflow. And so lots of the questions centered around that. And it was actually a closed session, so there weren't questions from the audience, sadly, although we had networking breakout sessions to be able to answer questions in between.
Yeah.
But it was all just questions that were sort of given to us from stage because we had a great host as well, and very interesting perspectives on the answers. Especially from the big brands, it's just what do the lawyers allow, and then from our perspective, it's what can we do that really stands out. So it's a
Yeah.
very different perspective on the same thing. But
Yeah.
what
It's
about
too,
you, mate? How was your event? Same
yeah.
thing.
Same regulations coming up. Came up quite a lot. It's interesting what you just said, where it was like the big brands is like, all right, what are the lawyers got to say first? And the small
Yeah.
brands are like, how can we be creative?
Yeah.
I've always said in this digital world, you need to be flexible, but obviously you need to be smart as well. So it's interesting that came up in yours because regulations came up a lot on mine.
Mm.
Who is control? No, first off, should AI or Gen AI as well be regulated? That was kind of like a large debate. My
Hmm.
like my thoughts were I see why it should be regulated, but who's going to regulate it? Is it the government?
Mm.
I think that's a bad idea. Is it going to be some group of people that will probably have some form of corporate interest? So
Mm.
again, like how you're going to regulate this? No, should it be regulated to an extent? Yes, because obviously things can get out of control. How they will regulate it is another debate, and that's
Yeah.
where I still can't get my head around. So regulation came up. Who will control? Do we need control?
Hmm.
Another thing that came up quite a lot was how it is being used by all types of industries. So
Hmm.
I was working. My panel was on the maritime shipping industry, and I know yours. Obviously, when you've got Adidas and McDonald's and Google, it's different industries.
Hmm.
How are you finding that, especially some of the big brands? How are they using it? How is McDonald's using it or Adidas?
Yeah. So one thread that I definitely took away is that many of them are prompting their own branding through their own, through generative technology. So, for example, Heinz Ketchup had done one where they'd asked for ketchup through DALI 2. And
Mm.
the whole takeaway of the campaign was even AI thinks ketchup is Heinz because every bottle looked like a Heinz bottle. And so it was
Smart.
a very interesting play on their own IP. But that's the thing where it's like they're not really pushing the boundaries very much. They're just generating things that they've already owned because that's if it's ended up in the training data, then obviously if it's a Heinz bottle, then it's something they own. So then it's no real infringement on their own IP. But that was definitely one of the things as McDonald's is trying to, generate with McDonald's in mind and Coca-Cola with Coca-Cola in mind. And
Yeah.
others are all generating with their own branding in mind and their own training data sets. And lots of them are looking at potential to sandbox tech tools, to create their own in-house versions and stuff
Okay.
like that, just to lock it off to their own staff. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of that going on. And the other takeaway was the IP and copyright infringement potentials,
Big,
and
big.
therefore
Mm.
the lack of copywriting of the ability of images produced. So many people were saying like it's really good for ideation and for doing mood boards and for doing pitching decks and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily good for the full campaign and stuff like that. So that was another takeaway.
We had the exact same thing because the panel, we like yours, people couldn't ask us any questions, but there was an app, so people could type in questions to the app, and then the host would kind of ask some of those questions that way. And one of them came up. One of the things that came up was about conversion. So when we look about the whole marketing funnel and etc., or not even the marketing funnel, just the
Mm-hmm.
sales marketing funnel, and it was all to do with conversion. And they were saying, well, how does AI work from a conversion point of view? And that came
Mm-hmm.
up by someone, and it's interesting it came up in that panel as well.
Mm.
And for me, who's someone who spoke on many panels over the years, predominantly around social media and content and just general digital, you start seeing the same questions and the same challenges and the same needs and the same wants coming up over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. So this is from what we're seeing now. You're gonna see that a lot moving forward. Because regulation won't be sorted for a long time. How it's
Mm.
connected to do with the funnel is going to be, and conversion especially, because even though mine was a marketing event, marketing now has that pressure, a lot of more pressure when it comes to conversion rather
Mm.
than just branding. Another thing came up was limitations. Um,
Mm.
you know, ChatGPT can't do everything for us. It's almost a case of people thinking, oh, let's just let the AI do it, and
Mm.
realizing actually it is quite limited. So where do the machines stop and we begin?
Yeah.
Or where do the machines stop and then we kind of take over? So that came up quite a bit.
We're definitely not in the realm of AI agents yet.
Yeah.
It's people with tools. And as you said, very graciously, I think if we start to recognize that it is just people augmenting their roles with tools and all of those previous MarTech tools that got us to this place, the big data collection, the automation and marketing, the MarTech tools to, follow people around the internet with cookies. And,
Mm,
we've been leading up to this like AI revolution for a while now.
yeah.
And it's just one big step in, the right direction if you're thinking about personalization and making better customer journeys. But you have to be very careful. And yeah, I'd say the last big takeaway from the event is to organize and structure your data. If you're sitting
Yeah.
on a lot of data right now as a brand and you're thinking, I'm going to start dipping my toe into this AI thing, well, you need to have all of the different segmentations of your data to get the most value out of it. Because if you're
Yeah.
trying to use, unstructured data in an AI platform, as you said, it's just another tool, and therefore you won't get the most out of it. So, yeah, in a nutshell, this is going to be a really big thing for a while now. It's very early on still, but it's hugely interesting to brands.
Exactly. Huge growth potential.
Exactly.